This is Chapter 22, Module 1, Intro to the Lymphatic System. The learning objectives of this module are 1. Describe the general characteristics and functions of the lymphatic system, 2. Describe the formation of tissue fluid and lymph, and 3. Describe the major functions of the lymph nodes, thymus, and spleen. The lymphatic system responds to pathogens, toxins, and abnormal body cells such as cancer. Pathogens are microscopic organisms that cause disease. Viruses, bacteria, fungi, and parasites are all pathogens that attack the body cells in different ways. Immunity is your body's ability to resist infection and disease. All the body cells and tissues, and not just the lymphatic system, are involved in producing immunity. The body has both specific and nonspecific defenses to resist and/or attack pathogens. Nonspecific defenses are ways that the body can block or attack any potential infectious organism without distinguishing one pathogen from another. In other words, they are nonspecific in which organisms they defend the body from. These defenses try to stop all attacks. Specific defenses involve lymphocytes. Lymphocytes identify, attack, and develop immunity to a specific pathogen. The different components of the lymphatic system include the lymph, lymphatic vessels, lymphoid tissues, and organs, and lymphatic cells, such as lymphocytes and phagocytes. Lymph is a fluid similar to plasma, but does not have plasma proteins. Lymphatic vessels are the vessels that carry lymph. Lymph eventually will be deposited back into the subclavian veins near the heart. The main function of the lymphatic system is to produce, maintain, and distribute lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are produced in a process called lymphopoiesis. They are produced in lymphoid tissues such as the tonsils, lymphoid organs such as the spleen and thymus, and in red bone marrow. Lymphocytes will be distributed anywhere in the body where problems are detected. Lymphocytes will move through the body tissues. They travel from the blood to the interstitial fluid and into the lymphatic capillaries. The lymphatic capillaries will return them to the venous blood. The lymphatic vessels begin in the periphery at the terminal capillaries. These capillaries are the smallest lymphatic vessels. Lymphatic vessels are different from blood capillaries in 4 ways. Lymphatic capillaries start as pockets. They have larger diameters, thinner walls, and are flat in a sectional view. The walls of the lymphatic capillaries have endothelial cells that are loosely bound together and overlap. The overlap of these cells act as one-way valves to allow fluid, solutes, viruses, and bacteria to enter, but prevents them from returning to the intracellular space. Lymph fluid flows from the lymphatic capillaries to larger lymphatic vessels that contain one-way valves. These lymphatic vessels travel side by side with veins. Lacteals are special lymphatic capillaries in the small intestine that transport the lipids ingested from the digestive tract. Lymphatic vessels are located in the skin, mucous membranes, and serous membranes lining the body cavities. Superficial and deep lymphatic vessels join to form large lymphatic trunks that empty into 2 major collecting vessels called the thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct. The thoracic duct runs anterior to the thoracic spine. At the base of the thoracic duct, it expands into the cisterna chyli. At the superior end of the thoracic duct, it empties into the left subclavian vein. The thoracic duct drains lymph from the entire left side of the body and the right side of the lumbar and lower limb. The right lymphatic duct collects lymph from the right chest cavity, the right side of the head, and the right upper limb. The right lymphatic duct empties lymph into the right subclavian vein. Lymphedema is a condition where the lymph drainage is blocked. It causes severe swelling and can interfere with the immune system. Lymphocytes make up 20 to 30% of circulating lymphocytes. Most lymphocytes are stored and are not circulating. There are 3 types of lymphocytes: T cells, B cells, and natural killer cells. T cells or thymus-dependent cells make up 80% of the circulating lymphocytes. The main types of T cells are the cytotoxic T cell, the memory T cell, the helper T cell, and the suppressor T cell. The cytotoxic T cells attack body cells directly when they are infected by viruses. Because they attack infected cells, they produce a cell-mediated immunity, meaning an infected cell mediated or initiated the attack. Memory T cells are formed in response to a foreign substance. They don't attack the foreign substance, but instead remain in the body to remember the foreign substance in the event the body is ever exposed to it again. The helper T cell is a helper cell that will stimulate the T cells and the B cells into action. Suppressor T cells inhibit the function of the T cells and B cells and help to end the attack. Both helper and suppressor T cells control the sensitivity of the immune response. B cells make up 10 to 15% of the circulating lymphocytes. B cells differentiate or change into plasma cells that produce and secrete antibodies, immunoglobulin proteins that bind to pathogens and destroy them or prevent them from infecting cells. Pathogens and foreign compounds have targets on them called antigens that identify them as foreign. Specific antibodies, also called immunoglobulins, bind to specific target antigens to initiate antibody-mediated immunity. Antibody-mediated immunity is a chain of events that destroys the target compound or organism. Natural killer cells, or NK cells, are large granular lymphocytes that make up 5 to 10% of circulating lymphocytes. They are responsible for immunological surveillance, which is a process of attacking foreign cells, virus-infected cells, and cancer cells. T cell and B cell populations are not distributed equally in the body. Lymphocytes wander through the tissues and enter the blood vessels or lymphatics for transport. Lymphocytes can survive many years. Lymphopoiesis or lymphocyte production involves bone marrow, the thymus, and peripheral lymphoid tissues. In bone marrow, the hemocytoblast stem cell divides into two types of lymphoid stem cells. Group 1 remains in the bone marrow and develops into B cells and natural killer cells. Group 2 migrates to the thymus and produces T cells. Mature T cells and B cells migrate throughout the body defending peripheral tissues. They retain their ability to divide, so when they are exposed to a specific pathogen, they can divide into cells that can help with the attack against more of the same kind of pathogen. Lymphoid tissues are connective tissues that are dominated by lymphocytes. Within the lymphoid tissues are lymphoid nodules that are areas of areolar tissue with densely packed lymphocytes. The germinal center of these lymphoid nodules contain dividing lymphocytes. Lymphoid nodules are located in the lymph nodes, spleen, respiratory tract, and along the digestive, urinary, and reproductive tracts. In the respiratory tract, these lymphoid nodules are the tonsils. There are 5 tonsils found in the wall of the pharynx or throat: the left and right palatine tonsils, the pharyngeal tonsil or adenoid, and the 2 lingual tonsils. Other lymphoid tissues are found in the digestive system. These are called the mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, or MALT. Their aggregated lymphoid nodules are clustered deep to the intestinal epithelial lining. Lymphoid organs include the lymph nodes, the thymus, and the spleen. Lymphoid organs are covered by a capsule. The lymph nodes are lymphoid organs where lymph from lymph vessels flow through them. A lymphatic vessel called the efferent vessel enters the lymph node at the hilum to carry lymph away from the lymph node. Afferent lymphatic vessels enter the lymph node from the peripheral tissues, bringing lymph to the lymph node. There is one efferent lymphatic vessel for every lymph node that carries lymph back to the venous circulation. There are 4 afferent vessels bringing lymph to the lymph node and 1 efferent vessel taking lymph away. This allows the flow of lymph to slow down in the lymph node, giving time for the lymphocytes within the lymph node to monitor the lymph fluid. The outer cortex of the lymph node contains B cells, and the deeper cortex contains T cells. The inner medulla of the lymph node contains B cells and plasma cells. Lymph flows in from the afferent vessels through a network of sinuses in the lymph node, traveling through the B cells of the outer cortex, the T cells in the deep cortex, through the B cells of the medulla or core, and finally into the hilum and out through the efferent lymphatic vessel. The lymph node functions as a filter to purify the lymph before returning it to the venous circulation. The lymph nodes remove debris, pathogens, and 99% of antigens in the lymph. The thymus is a lymphatic organ located in the mediastinum, just superior to the heart. It is most effective in infants and children and atrophies after puberty, diminishing the effectiveness of the immune system. T cells migrate into the medulla where they mature and then are released into the blood. The thymus also releases hormones called thymosins that promote the development of lymphocytes. The spleen is an organ that is attached to the stomach. It sits behind the stomach and contacts the diaphragm and left kidney. The spleen has three functions. It removes abnormal blood cells, it stores iron that was recycled from red blood cells, and it initiates immune responses by the B cells and T cells in response to antigens in the circulating blood. Blood passes through the blood vessels in the spleen where phagocytes and lymphocytes in the spleen identify and attack damaged and infected cells in the circulating blood. This ends Chapter 22, Module 1, Intro to the Lymphatic System.